There we go. Man, that was taking a minute. All right, let's see. Let's make sure we're live. Guys know me. I have to see it and make sure that we're good before we officially begin. It looks like YouTube's awake. Yep, YouTube, you're awake. Good morning. Good morning slash good afternoon. Rockfin, are you awake? Let's just make sure Rockfin's awake before we. Yes, we got it. We got it. All right, we are officially live. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. To everyone checking out the podcast later, what's up? How you doing? Good to see everyone. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. Special announcement, and I will continue to make this special announcement that come June, things are going to change with Get Your News On with Ron. It's not going away. The show is not going away, but we will be changing the way production happens here at Get Your News On with Ron. There will no longer be an audio podcast of Get Your News On with Ron come June because I will be launching a new podcast series that I am very, very excited about. And I will be making more announcements about that next month. But yeah, so the best way to keep abreast with everything and to continue to get your news on with Ron. That's a tough one, boy, man. But to continue to get your news on with Ron, the way you've always come to know it is to become a patron. Patreon.com/Ron Placone. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of perks, including all of the patron streams, which Get Your News On with Ron is just going to turn into a weekly stream. So to continue to get that the way you've always gotten it, best thing to do, become a patron for a give what you can level. You get all of my stuff, patron only stuff and regular stuff on Patreon. So for as low as $1 a month, you can just continue to get everything right there for you. So yeah, there you go. Good to see everybody. How are you? Good to see everyone. Yeah. All right. So we got a lot to talk about today, and got some fun stuff. So first of all, we're going to be talking about some crazy stuff going on in Florida. There's a abortion ban. There's also a couple other policies as well, and we're going to be diving into some of that. Also, we've been covering the Restrict Act a lot here on the show. I've been covering it here on Get Your News On with Ron. I've been covering it on Status Quo as well, and now some stuff is happening at the state level. In fact, Montana is the first state to try to enact their own TikTok ban. But we're going to start here, and this is a little interesting. This has to do with the Supreme Court allowing a student loan debt settlement to go through. Now, this isn't what you think. This isn't the overall student loan debt forgiveness that Joe Biden completely screwed up on purpose. He could have just done it via executive order, but instead he went this convoluted way through the court system that's probably not going to hold up legally. But here's something else that's happening simultaneously. Supreme Court allows $6 billion student loan debt settlement. All right, so here's what's happening here. This is from NBC News. A settlement that will allow thousands of student loan debts to be canceled will go into effect after the Supreme Court on Thursday declined to block it. The Supreme Court, in a brief order, rejected a request made by colleges challenging the settlement. Now, this article points out, and this is important to note, this case is unrelated to President Joe Biden's broader effort to forgive student loan debt. So Joe Biden's thing that's probably not going to hold up in court because of the way that he did it, this doesn't have to do with that. What this has to do with is a bunch of for-profit entities, like a bunch of for-profit universities, quote unquote universities. So here it is. The class action settlement concerns loans that borrowers claim should be canceled because they were taken out based on misrepresentations made by their schools, many of which are for-profit. So these are for-profit schools that made these. So the application of the Supreme Court. So here's the colleges that were against it. The application at the Supreme Court was filed by Everglades College, Lincoln Educational Services Corps, and American National University. Lincoln and American National are for-profit enterprises, while Everglades is not-for-profit. All three operate colleges the federal government placed on a list of more than 150 institutions that are linked with claims of substantial misconduct. So here's the deal. These institutions made whatever promises, and I guess in I'm assuming they're not accredited, or at least some of them aren't. So people took out these loans under this assumption that they were getting this education that would give a certain amount of weight to their expertise. It did not do that, so they're saying this is bogus, and the settlements going through. The colleges said, "Well, we're going to have the Supreme Court strike this down because we all know the Supreme Court is, in favor of corporations most of the time. The Supreme Court doesn't want to touch it." So now this is happening. Now, the reason I bring this up, of course, this does not have to do with the broader student loan forgiveness that Joe Biden is pursuing, quote unquote, pursuing. This is something totally different having to do with for profit entities. But, without diving too far into all the nitty gritty of the case, what I'm assuming is people took out loans to get an education at these for profit entities that may or may not even be accredited, and they were sold a bogus bill of goods, and they say our loan should be forgiven because we were sold a bogus bill of goods. Now, by the way, I'm on the side of the people here. I'm glad that it looks like they're going to win here. Hopefully that continues to go through and they pull out the W here and they get their loans completely forgiven. I'm on the side of the people. However, what I want to point out here is, usually when you take a gamble on a for-profit institution, you know what you're getting yourself into. The reason I say this is because what is stopping, why couldn't all of the people suffering from crippling student loan debt in this country that went to just, like accredited regular institutions, why can't they make a similar claim except against the predatory loan companies? To me, it seems like they have a very obvious claim too, that, okay, we were promised all of these things and we were sold these bogus loans, these predatory loans when we were 17 and 18 years old. We were promised a job market that didn't exist. I mean, I can speak as an elder millennial. And I know that it's not unique to millennials. Gen Z dealt with the same thing. Gen X dealt with a similar thing. But we were sold a complete lie. We were sold a job market that didn't exist. We were taught about a job market. We were trained for a job market that didn't exist. Institutions around the country trained people for jobs that didn't exist anymore. And they knew it. They knew it. They knew what they were doing. And these predatory loan companies got people who were young to sign up for these crippling scam loans because they knew that what choice do people have? Well, you were told, well, go to college, get a job, you'll be fine. You'll pay off these loans. Don't worry about it. Yeah, this is procedural because you need a 4-year degree. If you don't have a 4-year degree, you're completely screwed. You can't do anything without a 4-year degree. So just get your 4-year degree and you'll be fine. That's what people were sold. And it was a bogus bill of goods. We were sold a bogus bill of goods. Now, I'm not saying this to condemn higher education as a whole. I know that the student loan crisis isn't solely the fault of the institutions, nowhere close. Although a lot of these, colleges and universities, they have these, they got finances coming from somewhere. It sure as hell isn't going to the faculty. It sure as hell isn't going to the staff. It sure as hell isn't going to the graduate students. It sure as hell isn't going to the students. It's going somewhere. It ain't going there. That's for sure. But the reason for our student loan crisis is because institutions are not funded properly by the state. They were at one point in time. They're not anymore. Back in the day, they were. They're not anymore. And so that allows these predatory loans to exist in the first place. So the reason I bring this up, and again, I'm on the side of the people, but if the people can make the claim, hey, we were sold this bogus bill of goods by these for-profit institutions, we want our money back. If they could say that, well, why can't a bunch of students en masse, or a bunch of former students en masse, be like, we were sold this bogus bill of goods by these predatory loan companies, so these loans should be forgiven? And we were also sold this bogus bill of goods. I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. And I know a lot of people my age, it's like sometimes we don't even take a minute to take a step back and be like, oh my God, yeah, they completely lied to us. But they did. They completely lied to us. I'll never forget. So when I was in college, one of the things that I thought I wanted to do what was get into broadcasting, which by the way, I guess, I kind of am technically. But when I shortly after I graduated, I went to this broadcasting job fair. And the way it was sold is it said, "Do you want to be on the radio or have a career in broadcasting? Come to this job fair." I was just out of college. I was 22 years old. I was doing everything they told you to do. They said, "Oh, get an air demo ready." So I had an air demo ready of all of my best segments on the commercial radio station that I was a programmer at. Of course, this was all unpaid, but I was a programmer there. I did a couple shifts a week. I had my back then you still had CDs. So I had CDs of my air check demo that I was ready to give out and I was going to get a job. And I went to this fair, I had years of broadcasting experience, I had news writing experience, I was part of all the right clubs, I had the right grades. I wanted to start a career in broadcasting. I was back home in my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, wondering what's going to be next for young Ron. And I go to this job fair. And first of all, they really misrepresented what that job fair was about. The only jobs they had available for anybody was selling ads. It should have just been called, "Do you want to sell ads?" Do you want to sell ads for the radio? Because no one's making money in radio anymore. So we're willing to hire people to work on commission to try to generate some freaking revenue. Every job available was a sales job. And I was walking around. I was like, I want to be on the air. What jobs exist for me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You know why? Because local broadcasting personalities isn't really a thing anymore on radio. And I was realizing that. And I'll never forget, there was this one job. It was like an anchor job. And they were just taking applications on the spot. So I handed a hard copy of my resume and I handed in my air demo. And I said, "Here you go." And outside the tent, there was this guy there who worked in the local media. This was in Pittsburgh. I forget his name or even what channel he was with. It's not important. And he was standing there, and you could tell that guy did not want to be there. You could tell he just did not. He would rather be anywhere else. And by the way, by that point in time, I was feeling the same, to tell you the truth. But I walked by, and he did the obligatory "Hi, welcome to the career fair" or whatever. And I said, "Hello." And he said, "Oh, what's your name?" And I told him my name. And I said, I just graduated from Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. From Pittsburgh originally, trying to figure out what's next. And, I want to be on the air. And I just put in my resume for the anchor post that they posted. Uh, I'm 22 years old, by the way, 22 years old. This guy just looked at me and he goes, "Yeah, you and 400 others." And I said, Yeah, okay. I know it's a long shot, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I guess so." And I go, "Okay, thanks, man." And he goes, "Yeah, getting on air is pretty tough these days." I was like, "Yeah, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that." This broadcasting fair was advertised to try to get a job in broadcasting, and the only jobs here are freaking sales jobs. And I'm just, as the years go by, I thought about that guy and I'm like, what an asshole that guy was. Because it's just like, you're just bitter and angry that you have to spend an afternoon at this thing and you just love to rub it in. You feel better rubbing it in on a 22-year-old that they don't have the same opportunities you did. Because when that guy graduated from college, there were actually jobs. That guy, he was about 20 years older than me. When he finished college, there were jobs in broadcasting. You could build a broadcasting career when he finished. When I finished, that wasn't a thing anymore. So instead of at least just being polite, he had to be like just a rude prick to just be like, "Oh, and by the way, I'm still bitter even though I had a bunch of opportunities you didn't. I had a bunch of opportunities that you didn't have, and I still have a career because of those opportunities, but because I have to spend an afternoon here and I'd rather not be here, I'm just gonna be an asshole to you for no reason." Anyway, I mean, it's not like it's that guy's fault as an individual, but that was the moment for me, not that specific moment, but just like the broadcasting fair in general, where I realized I'm like, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. Everything that I have been told my entire life, as far as like this is what you do to get ahead, it's all a lie. Or it's maybe if it's not a lie, it's at best dated advice. It's advice that was applicable in the 70s. It's not applicable today. And I hope to never turn into that person as I get older. You know what I mean? Not that person at the fair, but somebody who's just giving advice that just isn't applicable anymore. If a young person came up to me and they said, "What do you think I should do?" I'm 17 years old, whatever. I'd be like, if you want to go to college, go abroad. Go abroad to college. The travel fees and the housing fees and the international fees will pale in comparison to what school costs in the United States, which is true, by the way. If you are on your own for college, you would have an easier time taking out some loans, going abroad where school is either tuition free or tuition is way less than what it is in the United States. You'd be better off doing that. You'd have way less debt. And once you get abroad, you'd have a better chance at staying there. You'd be better off doing that than going into crippling amounts of debt for institutions in the United States. So I guess my point is, and my point for bringing up that story is like, well, why can't there be some like large thing where everyone's like, well, we were promised all these bogus things. We were promised that these loans would be easy to pay off. They weren't. We were promised, we were sold a bogus loan because we were being sold a bogus bill of goods about the world we were entering. And it's still happening, by the way. They're still doing it to the Zoomers. But I mean, sometimes it's like you take a step back and you imagine that. They just lied to you. They just lied to all of us about the world we were entering, about the world we were going to participate in. It didn't exist. And it still doesn't. It still doesn't. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like if they can forgive these for-profit institution loans, they should be able to forgive all student loan debt. But of course, Biden went about it the completely wrong way. So now we're not even going to get the, like, what is it, 10 grand now that he promised? He promised people like 10 grand, which for most people who have student loan debt, that's like nothing. Anyway, that's why I wanted to bring that up. I thought it was an interesting conversation topic. Let's go over to Florida, where, oh boy, are things getting crazy in Florida. So here's what just happened in Florida. This is so freaking nuts. This is from People. Rape and incest victims must show proof to get exemption to Florida's new abortion ban. Wow. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the Heartbeat Protection Act into law, which bans abortion after 6 weeks, which, by the way, 6 weeks, most people don't even know they're pregnant a lot of the times. So 6 weeks, you can't get an abortion. And if you are a rape victim or an incest victim, you have to show proof. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has doubled down on the state's restriction against abortion services. On Thursday, DeSantis announced that he signed the Heartbeat Protection Act into law, which will now require a woman to provide proof that the pregnancy was a result of rape, incest, or human trafficking. Documentation can include a restraining order, police report, medical record, or other evidence. The restriction is an exemption to the new law, which states that otherwise abortions will be banned after 6 weeks, unless it's done to save a pregnant person's life. This is extreme. This is beyond extreme. But this is what is happening in a post-Roe America. We are now going to see more. We're now going to see more children as a result of rape more children being born as a result of incest, which, by the way, incest does not lead to healthy offspring. Like, incest leads to offspring that lacks cognitive skills. It's very, very dangerous. And we know the world we live in. We know the world we live in where, like, so many rapes go unreported. Most go unreported because we don't have a system in place where it's easy for victims to come forward. A lot of times when a rape happens, it's somebody the person knows, and it's somebody that's in their circle to an extent. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's someone that they thought was a friend, maybe it's someone. So a lot of rapes go unreported. That's the norm, unfortunately. That's the sad world we live in. And they're saying, well, you need to have some documented evidence. This is absolutely nuts. Here's another law going on in Florida. The Parkland school shooter got a life sentence. Now Florida is poised to require fewer jurors to agree on death penalty than any other state. Tony Montalto sat in a Florida courtroom and watched in disbelief as his 14-year-old daughter's killers received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole after a jury was unable to reach unanimous agreement that her murderer should be put to death. Monsanto hopes no family will endure the same disappointment as Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to sign into law legislation changing the requirement of Florida jury be unanimous to recommend a death sentence, reducing the number of jurors needed from 12 to 8, the lowest threshold of any state still practicing capital punishment. Now, this article from CNN, of course, it's going to lead to mixed emotions and mixed reactions. Obviously, when it comes to something like a school shooter, one does not have any empathy. I certainly don't. And it's hard not to want that person to face the face justice. Obviously, of course, you want them to face justice. And it's very hard not to say, hey, just they don't deserve to be alive anymore for the atrocious thing that they did. Here's the thing, though. You have to view this law through the entirety of society, not just through one example of a school shooter or something like that. And the truth of the matter is, about 30% of people on death row, at least, are innocent. That's those are the estimated statistics. Because of all the inequality in our justice system, because of systemic racism, things like that, a lot of people on death row, a lot of people, they're not actually guilty. And I myself am against capital punishment for a number of reasons. I don't think it's something we should be doing. I know in certain situations, absolutely, it's hard. When people commit these atrocious, atrocious crimes, it's really hard not to be like, you know what? I don't think they should be alive anymore. What they did was so terrible, and I don't like the idea that, the taxpayer money is gonna be used for them to be alive in a prison system. I get it. I mean, I get it. It's hard. We all wrestle with that. I think it's really hard. But when you look at the system as a whole, and you look at the fact that it's like there's people who are falsely accused, and there's people our justice system is just so whack, and it's so based on money, you can buy your own justice, that, yeah, I am against the death penalty. It's something we should not have, period. So now Florida is making it easier to have capital punishment. And this law will have a bunch of unintended consequences. And the reason that and they're pulling on people's heartstrings by using this example of a school shooter. And again, I get it. It's hard to have any empathy there. I totally get it. So, but yeah, I am against the death penalty. Um and this is just going to make it easier. So that's what's going on in Florida. And before we get off the topic, again, I do thoroughly believe that Ron DeSantis is the most dangerous person in American politics by far because of policies like these. Because of policies like these, and this is an interesting editorial about who he is. This is from Common Dreams. I'll never forget that smiling face of Ron DeSantis as I was being tortured at Guantanamo. This is an editorial from Mansour Adafi. In 2021, just as my memoir, Don't Forget Us Here, Lost and Found at Guantanamo. So this was someone who was in Guantanamo. I was on Twitter and saw a photo of a handsome man in a white Navy uniform. It was Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. I do not remember what the post was about, probably something about him clashing with President Biden over COVID policies. But I remembered his face. It was a face I could never forget. I had seen that face for the first time in Guantanamo in 2006. After finding a Miami Herald article in which DeSantis bragged about his service at Guantanamo and confirming that my memory is correct, I sent his photo to a group chat of former detainees. And then others remembered seeing him. When I first saw DeSantis, I was on a hunger strike. In 2005, almost all prisoners in the camp started participating in a hunger strike to protest against torture, inhumane treatment, and being held indefinitely without even being charged with a crime. By 2006, news about our hunger strike was finally getting out. One day, as we continued our strike with the hope that change is just around the corner, a naval judge advocate general, whom I later learned to be DeSantis, walked the blocks with other new arrivals. He stopped and talked to us, explaining that his job was to ensure that the camp was abiding by the Geneva Conventions and that we were being treated humanely. Wow. I remember him asking why we were still on a hunger strike. We told him to look around. Camp Delta was constructed from metal shipping containers divided into cages with wire mesh. In the summer, the cages were like ovens. In the winter, they were cold and wet. They were loud with huge fans and echoes of all the men's voices. In other words, we're not being treated humanely, Mr. DeSantis. Then there was persistent harassments by guards, desecrations of Korans, non-existent medical care, systemic torture, and being completely cut off from the outside world. We told DeSantis we were on a hunger strike because we wanted to know why we were being imprisoned, because we wanted a fair judicial process to prove our innocence. He took notes. He promised to register our complaints. So DeSantis was supposed to uphold humane procedures. He took notes, listened to them. Those were the complaints they gave him. The horrible conditions of the prison, the torture they were subject to, the fact that they did not get a fair hearing. And then here's what DeSantis would go on to do. A few days later, guards retrieved me from the cage I was in and took me to the recreation yard of the November block. There, we were greeted by a group of nurses and corpsmen standing right next to a metal restraint chair and several cases of liquid nutrient Ensure. A group of JAG officers and other observers, included Zach, the camp's cultural advisor, were watching the scene through the yard's chain link fence. They would go on to force feed this gentleman. He was there for one thing, to make me eat. I refused and was immediately and violently strapped into the chair so tightly I could not move. A nurse forced a thick tube into my nose and down my throat. My nose bled and the pain was so great that I thought my head would explode. The nurse would not stop. Instead, he began pouring Ensure into a feeder bag attached to the tube. Eat, the nurse yelled. Eat. They poured can after can into the feeder bag until my stomach and throat were so full that Ensure poured back out of my mouth and nose. I thought I was going to drown. If you throw up, a corpsman said, we'll start from the beginning with a new case and fill you up again. As I tried to break free, I noticed DeSantis's handsome face among the crowd at the other side of the chain link fence. He was watching me struggle. He was smiling and laughing with other officers as I screamed in pain. I threw up in their direction. They jumped back, disgusted. I did not care. I was the only one there who had the right to be disgusted. That force feeding was inhumane. It was meant to break me and teach me a lesson. It was meant to show me that I was just an animal with no human rights. There was no other way to call it. It was torture. Because I had thrown up, they fed me another case. This time, they mixed laxatives into the bag. The mixture of Ensure and laxatives completely wrecked my intestines after having no solid foods for more than 9 months. They left me restrained in that chair all night, soiled with my own waste and vomit. The next day, they started again. The message was clear. They were not going to stop force feeding me like that, torturing me until I ended my hunger strike. So I ended my hunger strike. All but a few of us did. A brother who saw me brought me back to my cage, said I was swollen as a dead body found in the water. Still, we kept protesting, especially against guards desecrating the Quran. We started planning for another hunger strike. In June, 3 men on my block, Yasser, Mina, and Ali, were found hanging in their cages, their hands and feet tied, pieces of cloth shoved down their throats. The camp administration called the deaths suicides, quote unquote, and asymmetrical warfare. No one believed it. I was eventually sent to solitary confinement, permitted to wear only shorts or a suicide smock, a heavy, disgusting smelling tube of cloth, too thick to roll into a noose. Along with the others in the solitary block, I was regularly pepper sprayed, beaten during cell searches, and subjected to cavity searches worse than rape. This is Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, who is making it easier to dish out capital punishment in the state of Florida, something that should not exist, who is making it harder for any women to get abortion care or any care whatsoever. And now, in the cases of rape and incest, you need to provide documentation, which is going to make that even harder too. Who is pushing bills that allow the legal kidnapping of transgender youth from their parents if their parents are actually trying to help them. Who is passing bills that are making it nearly impossible for any transgender or LGBTQ youth to get any help whatsoever from counselors in schools. Who is banning books by the boatful. Who is trying to completely whitewash education, even more so than it already is. Who is trying to outlaw protesting and make it a criminal offense. And he may very well be our next president. And the agenda he has for Florida, he will have for the entirety of the country. The entirety. And there's a good chance he will win. There's a good chance he will win because the country is still so obsessed about Trump, Trump, Trump. When did Trump blow a fart? What all happened with Trump? Everything that people thought Trump was, and Trump's terrible. Don't get me wrong. Trump is terrible. But he's just a narcissistic, incompetent moron. He's a narcissist. He's incompetent. DeSantis is the competent theocratic fascist. He is far more dangerous than a Donald Trump. So there's a good chance he gets through Trump in a primary. And there's a good chance he beats Joe Biden in general. Joe Biden has completely disappointed as everyone knew. I mean, we told you guys this the whole time. Joe Biden, of course, has been the neoliberal he's always been. He has not kept a single promise. He has broken plenty. He just approved a drilling project, promised he wouldn't do that. Even the most basic of promises that he could have done on day one with a signature on a piece of paper, he didn't do. Why? Because he doesn't really give a shit. He even said he probably wouldn't seek re-election. Yet another promise broken. And if we don't get Biden, we're just going to get a Biden clone who could easily lose to whoever the GOP throws up. So there is a good chance that Ron DeSantis could be our next president. And my honest prediction is if that happens, he will be the most dangerous president we have ever seen in my lifetime, possibly ever. Yes, he will be more dangerous than Bush. And I'll tell you what, when Bush got out of office, I thought if we ever see anything as bad as this, we're not going to have a country anymore. So, yeah. I'm not going to stop talking about how dangerous Ron DeSantis is. I'm not going to do it. This is the guy. I mean, this is why so many of us were like, look, Trump's terrible, but this Trump derangement syndrome is not good because someday there's going to be a competent Trump And everyone's just going to sound like the boy who cried wolf. Like, you guys said that Trump was just blah, blah, blah. So that's why a bunch of us were against Trump derangement syndrome. Well, now, guess what? We're being proven correct because now the competent Trump is here, and it's Ron DeSantis. And you're gonna see people in mainstream America talk about how DeSantis is reasonable because when he talks, he sounds reasonable. He sounds reasonable until you look into his actual policies and you realize how freaking nuts they are and how straight up they're fascist. Like they're just straight up fascist. I mean, all the stuff he's doing, like that's not an embellishment. That's what he's doing. Huh. So anyway, all right. So that's what Ron DeSantis is. Let's go over to Montana now. This is the last topic for the day. And then, by the way, right after this, we'll be doing the patron stream. So stay tuned. The patron streams, of course, is for everybody. And if you got a super chat, that is most appreciated. But that's kind of the post game stream where we just kind of chat it out. That's coming up right after this for everyone catching this live. But this is going on in Montana. Montana just passed the first state TikTok ban. Montana made history on Friday by becoming the first state legislature to approve a wholesale TikTok ban affecting nearly all devices in the state. The first of its kind ban, which goes far beyond previous state efforts, could set the precedent for a wave of TikTok bans in other Republican-led states. Widespread TikTok bans, for better or worse, could become a reality. So we've been covering the Restrict Act a lot on this show, which, by the way, at this point, the Restrict Act, banning TikTok is just one asterisk in how terrible the Restrict Act is. The Restrict Act, for anyone who's not been following this, we've been covering it a lot on this show. I've been covering it a lot on Status Quo. The Restrict Act is the Patriot Act Part 2. It is written in such a broad way that it applies to basically any application, any paid application, any web application, any software or hardware that comes from anywhere that isn't the United States. And if any entity, the Chamber of Commerce or whoever, deems it to be somehow, in some way, in any manner, threatening to the quote-unquote security of the United States, whatever that means, they can interpret that however they want, you could face penalties. What could you face? Up to 25 years in jail, up to a $1 million fine. The Restrict Act could make having a VPN, virtual private network, illegal, and you could face those penalties for having one. It could criminalize any app they deem worthy. It would mess with the Berman Amendments. What are the Berman Amendments? The Berman Amendments give you the right to have information from countries that aren't the United States. Getting rid of the Berman Amendments could allow any given president, be it Joe Biden or Ron DeSantis or whoever else, to dictate what information you could and couldn't see that doesn't come from the United States. It's a nationalistic, chauvinistic, xenophobic wet dream. That's what the Restrict Act is. And now they're taking it to the state level because, again, TikTok was the scapegoat they needed. Are there security concerns around TikTok? Yeah, but they're the same security concerns you have around Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The same ones. In fact, the TikTok hearings revealed that Facebook and Instagram are doing worse things. They're worse. And it was so amazing. I mean, you watch those hearings, and it just shows the gross double standard in this country. When they were asking the CEO of TikTok, what was that guy's name? Like I forget his name off the top of my head. Xiao Zichu. I'm probably mispronouncing it anyway, but Xiao Zichu. When they asked him, "Hey, is TikTok selling information and to advertisers and interested third parties?" He said, "No, we have not done that." Could you do that? Well, yeah, technically we could. Oh, let the record show. He said they could. We got to ban the app. China bad. Even though, by the way, America's data, not even in China. Not even in China. In Singapore and the United States. Not in China. Meanwhile, they did the hearing with Mark Zuckerberg, and they were like, "Hey, Mark Zuckerberg, does Facebook sell Americans' data to interested third parties?" And Mark Zuckerberg's like, "Of course, nerds. How else do you think I make money?" Okay, no further questions. It's amazing. It's amazing, the obscene double standard. The just obscene double standard. Facebook and Instagram doing worse things, and that's fine because that's, that's America, baby. And that's why we don't have actual policies that would help all these situations. If people were actually concerned about the privacy of Americans on TikTok, what we would do instead, we would pass a data privacy law that includes all of social media. So there'd be a data privacy law that applies to TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. But they don't do that. Why don't they do that? Because that would hurt Mark Zuckerberg's pocketbook a little bit. And not just Mark, Elon Musk, whoever else. It would hurt their pocketbook because they make all of their money selling your data to interested advertisers. That's how they make money. So if you have better data privacy and they can't watch what you do and every moment that you're on their platform, they're not going to make money as easily. They're still going to make plenty of money, by the way, because they still have advertisers just on their site. They're still going to make like gobs of money, but they might make a little bit less. And we can't have that. No, we can't. So this is just bullshit fear mongering. And I'm gonna go to let me pull up the website, the call to action here. Please go to stoptherestrictact.org. Please sign that petition. It takes a few minutes. Stoptherestrictact.org. This is the Patriot Act Part 2. This is the Patriot Act Part 2. It's just the Patriot Act applied to a digital space. Des Bush Fleisch, what's up? Please, someone hack. Des Bush Fleisch, how are you? Hope all is well in Germany. And you say, oh, wait, let me bring it up, actually. Let me bring up your chat here. Because I can do that now. Wait, where is it? Oh, man. Oh, wait, here it is. Yeah. Boom. Des Bush Fleisch, please someone hack the sound system so that every time Ron DeSantis approaches a podium, the Star Wars Imperial March is played. Yeah, no kidding, right? Thank you for that, Des Bush Fleisch. Folks, tour dates, I do have them. First of all, thank you to everyone who came out Friday night to the Glendale Room in Los Angeles. That was a blast. I had so much fun. It's been so great to work on this Edinburgh Hour and see it come together. The last headlining show of 2023 in Los Angeles is coming up on May 12th. That's right around the corner. That's that show 3 of 3 where I'm working on my Edinburgh Hour. Please come out. Tickets available now at ronplacone.com. June 16th, Madison, Wisconsin. Yes, Madison, everything is fine. We did have to switch venues. The venue I was supposed to play in Madison just closed, but we did find a new venue. Same time, same day, just a different venue. The show is now going to be at the Rigby. So get your tickets now, by the way. The early bird is going away very soon. Get your tickets now. Don't wait. Madison, Minneapolis, Chicago. Get tickets. Don't wait so you can get the early bird special. Use the promo code Lucy at checkout for that early bird. That's Madison, Minneapolis, and Chicago. So June 16th, Madison. June 17th, Minneapolis. June 23rd, Detroit. June 28th, Bloomington, Indiana. I can't wait to see you, fellow Hoosiers. June 29th, Chicago, Illinois. And Edinburgh, Scotland. I'll be at the Fringe Festival August 16th through 27th. My shows run daily, August 16th through 27th. You can go to my website for all the information and all the venue information. See you in Edinburgh. And October 21st, San Pedro, California, doing a comedy series right in my neighborhood. Tickets and all information can be found at ronplacone.com. If you want to support this show on the sustainability end, best thing to do is become a patron. And again, Get Your News On With Ron is changing in June. The best way to stay up to date on everything is to become a patron. For just $1 a month, you get all kinds of perks. I make theme songs for people. I'm doing birthday wishes from the beach now. If it's your birthday or a loved one's birthday, I'll do a birthday wish from the beach on a beach walk. Patreon.com/Ron Placone. And you get all my stuff, and you'll be able to stay abreast on the stream when it switches formats come June. So yeah. Anyway, you get the drill. You get the drill. Guys, don't go anywhere. The patron stream is going to start immediately after this. And to everyone else who's checking this out later, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow. I say peace, love, and a general